Welcome to the Black Men Think podcast. If this is your first time here, know that the views and opinions expressed by the Black Men Think podcast are those of the Black Men Think podcast and not the individual members. With that being said, we're about to be unapologetically, undeniably black. Enjoy.
Hey, what's going on, man? We another episode, another week, refreshed.
Yes.
You know, Black
And
Man
it,
Think
it
we're
feels
here.
good to be back in the studio, man.
I know it's been a minute. I feel like I ain't seen you in a minute, Tori. You've been ghost. You've been
Yeah,
ghost.
man.
It's all good.
Yeah, real life stuff out here, man.
Hey, I get you. I understand completely. It's definitely real life, man. And speaking of real life, we do our Ask a Black Man segment, and this week it came from I don't know if I'm just gonna say KH. I don't know if you want his name out here. Shout out to you. I'll say Keith. Shout out to Keith. And he dropped a comment on one of our latest episodes and was just talking about, another great episode. Love you guys. You guys don't shy away at all. And this is how we continue to grow as men, as in culture. Keep it coming, fellas. And throughout there, so this thing about hard conversations, right? Like we have these hard conversations. So Ask a Black Man for this week. I just got one question.
Okay.
How do we have hard conversations? Those tough conversations? Like what's the layout? Like how do we have them? How do we continue to have those conversations?
Right. Well, man, that's actually a great question. And Keith, thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. But when you talk about having hard conversations, one, it depends on that relationship, right? It can either be those hard conversations that you have to have with your spouse or your significant other, or whatever the case. Or if you are a manager or a boss, you have to have those sometimes difficult conversations with employees. So I think it really just depends on the perspective. But for the purpose of tonight, let's start off with just a general having a difficult conversation with a friend or something like that.
Okay.
One of the things that I thought has always been this is just one, be honest.
Mm-hmm.
You have to just come in, really speak what's on your mind, but be honest about it, and don't really be as they say, over aggressive, right? You have to present it the way that people can receive it, right? So, we talked about this on other podcasts, how communication is a two-way street, and it's incumbent on the person delivering the communication to ensure that the end person is receiving it, which makes it effective communication. So it really just starts with, one, knowing yourself, knowing how you handle stressors and difficult things, and having that empathy when you're trying to have that difficult conversation with somebody. With me and my old roommate, when we had to have difficult conversations, and you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
One of the best ways that we found out was over a drink. You know what I'm saying? So you really have to think about, one, who is that person that you got to have that difficult conversation with, and what is that atmosphere that can really foster a productive conversation to have with that person, right?
See, I think that's a good point, atmosphere, right? Because everybody's personality is different.
Right.
Some people, for me, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm big on tone. Like tone is a real big thing for me. And the reason why I found that is important for me is because, I view myself a certain way. So I try to be respectful to other people.
Right.
And so if you come with me like very disrespectful, try to have a conversation, I'm not gonna receive it at all. Like I'm not that type of person where you can't just come and like tell me like, yo, you need to do this. I'm gonna immediately get in like, no, that I don't. And this might be a fault of mine, but if you come in like, yo, you need to do this, this, and this, and then just like walk off, I'm not gonna receive it. And in fact, I'm gonna like go out my way to not do any of the things that you said that need to be done. And that's just me. Like I said, I'm still trying to get work on myself, right? But I that's why when you say atmosphere, that kind of hit home, because you have to know, you got to read the room, number one, right? Read the room and know who you're dealing with and who you're having that conversation with,
Right.
and find out what type of person that person is, because especially in that environment, like in a friendship, if you don't know the type of person that you're dealing with, you can end up killing an entire friendship over something that's juvenile. Like it could be the smallest thing. And, because words get taken out of context all the time, especially with this thing right here.
Yep.
You can't text certain things. Like some things you have to pick up the phone and make a call, because we've all been there, bro. Like I've been there with friends, relationships, business, where a text message may come in where somebody's saying something, or I may send out a text message and their reply will come back and it'll have you looking at the phone like, what? Like,
like, do I need to go see this dude?
Yeah, do I need to go see them? And it might not even be that big of a deal, but there's no context over text, right? There's no context. We don't know. A simple K could either be read as like, okay, you understand where I'm coming from, or K, like I'm blowing you off. Like it could be so many different things. And so I think because we live in a world where everything is so fast paced and everything is so focused on social media and technology, that we've missed those interpersonal and face-to-face interactions, or called, phone call to phone call interactions. And so I think that's vital, man, to really with anything, having a hard conversation needs to happen either face to face so I can read you, or at least on the phone so I can hear your tone. Those two things can't be duplicated over text, man. Like it can't happen at all.
No, man, I think that's a great point there. You definitely have to have those difficult conversations. Have to be either visual and audio, or audio at least. Text message doesn't, and it's not appropriate. Listen, people, it's not appropriate for for difficult conversations, because it's gonna go left real quick.
So you say you can't break up over text?
No, you can't do that. You can't do that.
What if you want to see a person?
I mean, if y'all want to see a person, then it is what it is. But that's something that we would do as younger guys. I had a conversation probably about 3 weeks ago now, maybe a month. One of my friends asked that very same question. He was like, he's a little younger than us, and he was like, I'm gonna send her a text, but I'm like, no, I'm like, be a man. I like, the thing about it is, you told this individual up front that you wasn't looking for a long-term relationship anyway. I like, you ain't did nothing wrong. I like, it's that person that continuously try to come back into the picture, saying that they understand that you don't want anything, but yet still pursuing at that angle. And
right.
I was like, as long as you're honest from the beginning, you could be a man and just say, hey, no, it ain't going that way. I like, now at a certain point, you're just gonna have to stop that relationship, period. Because get into the action and it's not changing, right? But I like, you ain't did nothing wrong. You shouldn't be afraid to have that hard conversation in that instance. So I totally agree with you. But yeah, breaking up over the phone generally is not great.
No, it's not great. I'm trying to think. Have I had one of those situations? Break up over the phone? I've never broken up with anybody over the phone. I have been relieved of my friendship, dating relationship, or whatever you want to call it, via email before. Let me tell you, that's not fun at all. That is, huh?
Now I'm trying to think, have I ever did that? I think I might have did it once, and that might have been like just in college, when we just got to college. But I don't even think I did it then. I think I was
college. I feel like I may have. Okay, I was notorious for. I was notorious for like the cutoff, like a clean cutoff, but it wasn't like a actually it was just poor. It was poor communication is what I'm, as a grown man now I can tell you it was poor communication, but I was notorious for the like, yeah, this ain't gonna work out for me or for you, so let's just move on. But it still wasn't communicated in the way I'm clearly communicating now. It was more so just like,
Right.
Yeah, I'm not calling that person ever again. You know what I mean? So
Right.
um I've had those, but to me, the email was probably like the cut off, like probably I don't want to say weird, but I don't know, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm talking bad about that person that did it. Like by any means, they did what they had to do and what was best for them at the time.
Right.
But I think by email that may have been like the one that stood out for me as far as like how to get cut off. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that is the real conversation of this podcast. Like, how do you cut somebody off? Forget about how you have a hard conversation. How do
Right.
you cut somebody off?
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, being cut off by email was definitely a unique experience because for me, and I would like to hear from anybody else too, like, how have you been cut off? But
Right.
um, for me, getting cut off via email, it's like you read this elaborate email and you want to respond, but it's like clearly in the email, if you can tell, like, our response is not needed. Like, this
Right.
is it. This is,
Right.
don't
It
try
was
to
very
call, respond,
detailed.
like,
Very detailed.
very detailed. You've been relieved. Like, there's nothing that you can say after reading this that's gonna warrant any type of conversation after. So that was a unique thing for me, bro. Like, that was like one of those things that I don't think I'll ever forget. That was just like, wow, okay, that's a pro move right there. I ain't never seen that.
I haven't been done that way, but I think the classic way that most people have probably done is that they just stop calling. like,
Yeah, 100%,
like
100%.
I'm like, dang, and me back in college, I was the type of, you tell me it's left, and I'm not going left. No sweat off my back. So I think that's the one thing that if you want to really get me upset quickly and
Mhm.
get on my list, because I guarantee you I could be a lot more spiteful than you can. It was that. You knew how it was.
I know. Oh, that's why I'm laughing this way. That's why
So
I'm laughing.
I was in certain situations I'm a very blunt person, and it's
Mhm.
when it came to relationships and things in that nature, I was a very blunt person because to me, relationships, I didn't want to waste people's time. If I knew going
Right.
left or right, I was going to tell you, hey, this is not what I'm looking for. We can do X, Y, and Z, but it's not going to go to B.
Yeah.
Now that's one thing about me that I think everybody would agree. Now I was a straight up front person. It's like, hey, if it's just we kicking it, we kicking it. If we're exclusive, we're exclusive. Whatever the case, it was no gray area with me. You
No
knew
gray
what
area.
you did.
Yeah, I
And
was Mr. Gray Area. So,
I remember.
but see, Tori. All right. So here's the thing, right? Because we grown now, and when you grown, you learn
Right,
about yourself, right?
right.
I didn't realize that I was Mr. Gray Area. I
Mm,
didn't notice. Like, I was just like, and I've said this on this podcast before. I was just everybody was the homie, and
right,
so I didn't realize by saying that you put people in a gray area because I didn't mistreat anybody. You know what I'm saying? But it was a lot of people who I think right now, if we had a conversation, it'll be like, so what were we? You know what I mean? I think that would come up a couple of times, and that's something like you just
a
have to learn.
couple. Come up a couple.
It'll come up. It'll come up a lot. I mean, just being honest, it'll come up a lot. Just like, yo, so what? Because I mean, the recurring theme for me is that, like, okay, he was always a good guy. He always treated me well. It wasn't like never a disrespectful type. I'm just a genuinely a good person. Like, I'm not even trying to boost anything. I'm just genuinely a good person. And so I think it'll always be like, man, we really had good times together, but like there was no definition of what we had. Like, are we dating? Are we like just kicking it? Are we friends? Like,
I think
and
that's because not just say that. I think there was half of us that was considered like the nice guys, and then there was
mhm,
the other ones that was the more ruthless.
just ruthless. Yeah. And
uh,
so, I mean, that's one thing, it's a living you learn type,
right, right,
you know, method or whatever. But Honestly, I wouldn't change anything because you learn from it. Some that you have to be a certain type of way so you know how not to be now. And I'm still working on that. Even in my marriage, still just working to effectively communicate um, how I'm feeling, what I'm feeling about all of those things, right? And so um, that just kind of comes with the territory of growing as a black man today. It's just like you got to continue to progress and continue to grow. But I'll be lying to you if I was saying like I wasn't Mr. Gray Area. Like that was definitely me for a
Right.
lot of years.
So we've talked more so about, from the friend slash
Relationship.
relationship effort.
Hmm.
What about at work? I know there's
Mm,
times that you have to, whether it be, talking about, race or
mm.
treatment of people. How have you approached those conversations?
I think work depends. I mean, all of this definitely depends on the person, right? But being a black man and I can only speak for me, so in a corporate setting, right? I think it gets tough because for one, you are representing, or you may feel like you're representing a large group of people, which sometimes that's unneeded and unwanted pressure that you're putting on yourself. But the other part of that is that you're constantly, as a black man in certain positions, you're constantly thinking about, well, am I doing the right things to keep my job, number one, or also effectively communicating my thoughts and feelings and all of those things. Because I mean, it is what it is. Like at work, things will come up, and maybe not so much now because a lot of people are virtual,
Mm-hmm.
but in an in-office atmosphere, a lot of times it's just people can either get loose, or people tend to be friends. And I think one thing that we have to remember is that you're still in corporate America. Like people are friends, but they really ain't friends. Like you, my friend, I'll call you if something going on. I'm
Right.
not calling my coworker if something's going on personal in my life. Like that's just not. And I think we have to remember to have those boundaries. And I think because we don't have those boundaries a lot of times, it makes it harder to have some tough conversations, right?
Mm.
Like it's kind of cliche, but we know that in a corporate setting, politics, um,
Religion.
religion, and really, unfortunately, which does us a lot of disservice, finances are just not talked about. And
Hmm.
I saw a meme, bro, that like it's so crazy, but it was so real at the same time. It was like maybe in the U.S. I can't speak for out of the country, but in the U.S. it has been normalized to not talk about your salary at work. Like nobody talks about their salary at work. Nobody knows what anybody's getting paid for the most part, unless you work like government and you can go online and see what that government official is making. But for the most part, in a corporate setting, nobody knows who are getting paid. So you know, there's a scale. There are some people you might have an idea of some people what some people are getting paid, but that's a tough conversation to have, right? Like if you feel that you're undervalued and you're trying to have that conversation, how can you have that real conversation about value when you don't know the value of anybody else? And believe it or not, that is a system that was put in place to keep people underpaid at work. Like that's really all it is.
Hmm.
If this person don't know how much this person's making, then you can't really complain about what you feel your value is because you don't know what the next person is making. The next person
Right.
can be making 10 grand less than you, or they can be making 20 grand more than you, but you don't know. And that's been normalized. And I think that's something that we have to break some kind of way. I don't know how we do that, but I think that has to be broken up because if we don't, we'll never know. Like people stay at jobs for 15, 20 years, getting, a 0.5% raise every year,
Right.
thinking that that's the norm and realizing that no, you like $20,000 underpaid and you're not going to get that bump. And when you finally wait and ask for that bump, it's too late because now it's like, oh, we're not going to increase your salary by $20,000. We're just going to get rid of you and get
Break.
somebody else who's
Yeah. Mhm.
happy making $30,000 a year.
Right.
your job, you know what I mean, and train them to. So that's something that's tough to have, and I think that we have to find a way to really normalize. So to answer that, we got to normalize having salary conversations with our coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we do that is something that I don't know, but we have to figure out how to have a salary conversation where it doesn't come off as being intrusive. Because honestly, I don't care how much you make. I don't care how much you make. I care about how much I make. You know what I'm saying? That's it. That's all. That's all it is. And you know, in order to get to that, we just got to figure out a way to have that type of conversation respectfully in the workplace.
Right, right. So what has been the most difficult conversation that you have to have at work?
Hmm. The most difficult conversation, well, for me personally, the most difficult conversation that I've had to have at work was one that honestly ended up, I thought it was going to be a difficult conversation, but it wasn't difficult. It was just more so me being stern about what I wanted. And that was me saying that I'm not going to be, I can't work 5 days a week. And
Mm.
so I did this. It's been, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago now. It's been a
Right.
while, but I made that decision that I wanted to be able to spend more time with my family and also focus on my other businesses. The good thing about where I work at, I've always been upfront about what I do outside of work. I've never shied away from that. You know, I do music and podcasting, all that, like media. I've never shied away from that. And thankfully, I have a job that they don't necessarily care about that stuff that's going on outside, as long as it's not affecting your job while you're here. And so, you know, but I had to have that conversation where it was like, hey, I it's better for me not to be here 5 days a week,
Mm.
right? And we know that that's a conversation that can easily go left. Like, you know, they'll tell you like, no, we need you here 5 days a week. And I was very stern on saying that no, I can't come in on Mondays. I can be here Tuesday through Friday, basically. And we came to an agreement on what that looks like, and we've been rocking with that ever since. And so I think that that was a while the end result was not difficult at all. I think
Right.
leading up, it was a tough conversation to just the thought of being able to have that control or that type of power in the workplace. You know, I think that was something that I didn't know that I had, and also it was tough to get over that hill or that hump of saying like, no, you know what, just open your mouth and say something. This is how you really feel.
Right.
You know, go for it. You know. So, what about you though?
Well, let me start by saying that, I totally agree with what you said earlier. The conversation is dictated by the level, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way you will talk to a supervisor, your supervisor, or somebody that's at a higher level than you is different than you would talk to a peer, and it's different.
Mm-hmm.
That's different from somebody that's subordinate to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but they all need to be respectful regardless of the fact. And
100%.
I look at it from that perspective, but I always have a core what I say regardless. I stand for what I stand for, regardless of if it's somebody above me or below me or peer.
Right.
I'm gonna let them know what I'm gonna do from my perspective.
Well, I would love to know what I'm gonna do.
And then we'll frame the rest of the stuff around there. But I'm always pretty like, this is what I feel, this is how I did it, this is why I did it.
Right.
Now
Right.
you can frame it left or right. Was it the right decision? That's a totally different thing. But I think that the toughest discussion that I had to have from well, I give a good and a bad one. So the toughest one I have on the bad side is having to terminate somebody, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know, being in the position I am, I deal with hiring, firing, and all other types of things as well. And so having to really deliver news to somebody that hey, this is not working, we're going in a different direction. um that I don't, no matter how many times you do it, I think that still is a difficult and tough conversation to have,
Right.
because
Right.
the person on the other side is different. That some have some of the most passionate and heartbreaking stories behind it. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, if performance is not where it's at, skill sets is not where it's at, if it's just not a right match, it's not a right match. You know,
Right.
sometimes there are those individuals that you like, everybody does agree, oh, that person, that person needed. But, other times, it's about those margins, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you really have to assess, one, you really do have to think about the team at a larger effort and the strategy and the direction of where the group is ultimately trying to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think from that perspective, that is probably the one of the difficult or some of the difficult conversations I have is around
Right.
that. But on the other side, I think to your point about salary, that since I'm on the government side, that definitely it's a little easier because, like you said, I can just for your request everybody's salary if I want to,
Mm-hmm.
and I can get that. So it's not as secretive. They just won't give it to you, but there are ways that you can get it right.
Got you.
It's
Got
not
you.
like being a corporate side. On corporate side, sometimes they have policies that's instituted so that you don't even talk about it. So if you do talk about it, you can be penalized for talking about it. So, but one of the best conversations I had was actually around pay increase and what I thought I should be getting in, and it was around me getting a promotion and going to a new position. And I came in and said, "Hey, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. You know, the old position I was in. I would like to still continue to do it. So I would like to roll it up and absorb that into here. This is what I want." And I thought that was going to be one of the most difficult conversations. Go get pushback, but the person looked at me like, I don't have no problem with what you're asking for. And the only thing I'm doing is in the back of my head, I'm kicking myself like, dang it, I should have asked for more.
Too low. It was
that's,
too low
what,
of an offer.
that's what I said. I'm like, man, I was too low. I should
Yeah,
have
it
asked.
was too low. They agreed that quick. It was too low.
Yeah,
It was
that's what
too
I
low.
said. So I was like, so from now on, I was like, whatever I think I want, I'm gonna go higher. And then if they say no, like, well, okay, well, what about
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
uh,
The
but
power of negotiation, man.
yeah, man. But so I think those were from a work professional standpoint. That
Yeah, I think that's good, man. I think that's good. And that's some valuable information as well because um, once we understand value, I
mm.
think that we can have that conversation. Now, also,
You know
with
what?
all that
I'm
being
glad you said
said,
it. Wait,
hmm?
because I'm glad you hit on that because I
Okay,
want to stress this. So I had another difficult conversation. A lot of times is around performance evaluations, right? That's where really things can get heated as well. And so one of the things that I try to make clear to my employees is like, look, this is not a values conversation.
mm,
Performance evaluation is not, oh, you're adding value, right? It's about the keywords, performance, eval. So I'm
yeah,
evaluating your performance. This is not saying how much I value you. This is
hmm,
this is literally saying, did you meet the marks of what we set out as the goal and objectives um, for the department and for the team for the year. So I caution people from when you're going into that conversation, take that value perspective
right,
out a little bit because when managers are coming at you, they're not coming at you saying, "Oh, we don't value you, so we just
hmm,
do." So you think you getting a lower score than what you thought. You think you out here killing it and getting all fives when they've already told you that we really don't give fives because fives is perfect. So you
right,
can
right, right, right,
perfect.
right.
And but you give them a three, which means you meet expectations, you met your goals, and you're like, oh, you don't value it. No, it's not that. It's
Yeah,
not a value. It's that these are the categories. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about performance. Value is something at a different thing. So
right, right.
on the other
Now,
thing.
I was gonna say this. Here's the thing: if you don't know what your value is and you don't know what you bring to the table, after all of that stuff we just said, don't go asking for no raise because you're gonna get
Go.
fired.
There you go. There you go.
That's what I'm saying. So
When you're talking
you
about
gotta,
pay, when you talk about
yeah.
pay, now you're talking about value. So
Mm-hmm.
now you can bring in the conversation like, well, I add this. This is my value. This is
Right.
why I should get X, Y, and Z. But if you can't even meet your performance eval, you don't even need to talk about your value. So
You shouldn't go into an evaluation for the year and you're getting bad remarks. If
correct.
you're getting those bad remarks, then look, don't even worry about salary. Just stick either decide that you're gonna work hard that next year
Right.
or leave and find another job.
Right.
But you can't go in there and knowing that you haven't done an effective job, throughout the year and think that you're gonna get a raise. Like,
That ain't gonna
no,
happen.
it's not gonna happen at all. So I think those were solid points, man. Trying to think. So what's another hard conversation? I know we did relationships, dating, um, and relationships and friendships, and we did in the workplace.
Biggest
Where's
one,
another?
the
Huh?
biggest one for me and you, right?
The biggest
Both
one.
of us,
Okay.
we're married. Uh,
Right.
so the difficult conversation that you're having confines of a marriage is
Tough. It's tough.
is very tough, and it's one of those where you can't just walk away from it. It ain't
You can walk away, but you got to come back.
you gotta come back. You gotta come back. It's one of those where you
Got to
say,
come back.
it's one of those things where you can say, we done. No, you can't. Yeah,
Mm-mm. We
not a,
might be done for the night.
right,
Tomorrow we're gonna talk.
right, right.
um, I mean, man, having difficult conversations in marriage is, I mean, it's tough. It's probably one of the it's up there in the spectrum of one of the most difficult things, but also the easiest thing. Because what I've found is once you build up to have the difficult conversation, and don't get me wrong, it's not. I'm gonna say it's smooth sailing. After that, it's not smooth sailing per se, but at least in my case, whenever I open the door to have difficult conversations with my wife, it it strengthens our relationship,
Mm,
right? And so it ended up being a smooth. I say smooth sailing because it ends up being a situation where it builds value for what we're doing as a couple, right? And so every year we set our goals. Like we set personal goals, family goals, and financial goals. Like that's our three that we do every year. We go through them. We sit down, and we usually do that like New Year's, around that time after Christmas a little bit. So we'll write that down and we put it on. Sometimes we'll do a vision board. Sometimes we'll write it on paper. I mean, every time we write it, we're writing it down somewhere, and we're making some type of presentation with one another and just sharing each other's goals. And so um, part of the tough conversations in that is that sometimes your vision might be completely different from your
mm,
spouse's vision, or your priority may not be the same priority as theirs, and you have to have a tough conversation on like, well, like right now, well, not even right now, I'll say a couple of years ago, my wife really wanted to buy a home. Like it was just like, oh man, we got to get a house, because it felt like the next thing to do, right? It was like, oh, we thinking about having kids. This was before we had Jade, and maybe we had just had Jade, maybe, but it was just, it's like the next thing, like, oh man, we should buy some property, or buy a house. What's the thing, right? And so we had that tough conversation of where, look, I understand that you want to buy a house, but there are some other things that we can be doing that's a little more effective right now, right? Like you have to understand with a house, yes, compared to rent, you are spending the same amount of money, but also we got to keep in mind that, hey, if something happens at this house,
you're responsible for it.
we're responsible. Now, can we cover it? Yeah, we can, but are you ready to cover it? And I kid you not, we had that conversation, and right in the middle of having that conversation, our dishwasher at this property went out, our refrigerator went out, the main the main water line
Um,
burst. This all happened within the span of like 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month of each other at the same time. And so we're talking about if we had to deal with it, you know this as a homeowner yourself, we're talking about somewhere in between 5 and 10 grand. Like just and that's and I'm talking about low end. That's going to get, a okay stove, I mean an okay dishwasher, an okay refrigerator, and spending the most of the money fixing the main water line. You know what I mean? So it's things like that to where it kind of it hit. You know what I mean? Like when that happens, just like, man, you know what? No, let's think of another plan. So now we still have plans to now we're looking to purchase properties like rental properties in some smaller cities and getting more of a strategy as opposed to just trying to buy our quote unquote forever home. It's like, you know what? Let's go out and buy some property that can accumulate some income, and then we can put that income into buying what we really want, as opposed to, you know, I'd rather have 3 or 4 properties that are generating income that we can just use that income and go and buy the house that we really want. You know what I mean? And so those are tough conversations to have, and it may not be what one person want, but then we have to find some middle ground. Like, okay, instead of saying let's go and get the house right now, let's plan to get the house. So let's start saving aggressively on certain things, and aggressively paying off debt that we want to get rid of, and all of those things. So and I don't know about you, but it seems like in marriages that finances are always in that top 2 or 3 conversations when it like hard conversations like that has to be had. But yeah, that's pretty much what it was for me and my household, really.
so it's strange because for me, in work conversation, different conversations, and past relationships slash friendship conversation, those different conversations, I actually, I can do not a big of an issue for me, but the marriage one, it really has always. I'm non-confrontational
I'm
in
same here, bro. I feel you. Yeah.
marriage, and so sometimes that can lead to me prolonging those difficult conversations longer than I should have.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, my wife, she is wanting those difficult conversations, not for us to be difficult and confrontational, but
Right, right.
9 times out of 10, they probably wouldn't be confrontational if we would just went ahead and had those difficult
See
conversations.
how easy it could be for us?
Right, right, right. But in my mind, that's not how I'm thinking. I'm like,
Right.
who finna do this? But to your point, I think it's literally centered around those same things like finance. Um, well, now it's about, okay, well, what are we gonna do about education? For the girl.
Bro,
You know,
those are the tough conversations right now. Are we going through it? Y'all don't understand it, but we both have like children around the same age, and we're legit thinking about school right now. And like, bro, that is one of the man. Oh, okay, whatever. That's another episode, but go
that's
ahead.
a whole nother. You're gonna have to get Motown in on that one. That's
Yeah,
a
man.
whole nother
Man.
episode. But yeah, so those kind of conversations are like I said, what needs to be had. And I think the one of the most difficult ones that we had um, was around not necessarily purchasing a house, but just what our financial goals are. And one of the things and why I preface it that way is like I don't think a lot of times when people get married that they all just say, "Hey, this is our idea of what marriage is." Right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you go through the marriage counseling, they don't necessarily tell y'all, "Okay, what's y'all vision of marriage?" It's not that. I think that was when we both started talking. Like, well, this is what I see, and she was like, "Well, this is what I see." And so then we was dealing with a counselor at the time, and this person was like, you know what? You guys have very different views of what marriage is, right? And so, as long as y'all have different views of what marriage is, y'all are always going to have these little friction points, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that it's bad or anything of that nature, but you know, you guys both have to agree on what that picture of marriage look like,
Right.
and so once you really get that foundational stuff together as well, I think that opens up a lot. That doesn't mean that you're always gonna, because even though we come together about what we think of marriage supposed to look like, we still have our own ways about how we get there.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it
yeah.
comes back.
Right, right,
So
right.
it's one of those things that as long as you have what the goal is, the strategy to get there, it is what it is. But I think those were some of the most difficult conversations. And then also around family planning, right? Like how many kids? What do you?
Hmm.
I mean, so I think those were the difficult conversations, especially
Yeah.
because I was ready to have kids before she was, and so that kind of was a little bit of friction. But at the same time, I was like, I can't tell you what to do with your body, so it's like I can't tell you what to do, but at the same time, I'm mad that you're not doing what I want you. so,
I
so
mean that's a honest statement though, bro. I think that's the thing that we have to be able to do. I think that's one of the things that we sometimes may have a hard time feeling like we're very similar, especially with the kids situation. I think my wife and I we were dating. She didn't want to have kids when we were dating,
mm,
and I know I was very firm on like, no, I want kids. Like you know what I mean? And I think, we came to a compromise of where like and I always say thank God for Beyonce because Beyonce had kids and my wife is she looks to Beyonce for a lot of inspiration and all that. And
she in the
it's
beehive.
she's definitely Beehive all day long, bro. She's Beehive. But the thing was, it wasn't even the fact that Beyonce, like had the children. It was the fact that like her being engulfed in what Beyonce has going on, she realized it's like, man, Beyonce has a lot of things going on, and she still found time to be a mother. And I think, and I'm sure it might be some other things too, but I think for her that was big for her to see, like, you know what, I can do this. And I'm and she'll. I don't want to speak for her on that. She can speak when she wants to on that, but it just probably has some fears about raising children and my wife's always been like super independent. And so
Well, I
being
think
super independent,
on my end, it was similar, but my wife was like she wanted to be prepared. And so
hmm
my thing is like you can never just be totally prepared to be a parent, just like you can never just totally 100% be prepared to be married, right? Uh,
right, right.
and so, but you know my wife. My wife is one of those where she would like to have as much control over what's going on as possible. And sometimes we just have to each learn how to just let it go. I mean, I'm like that too on a lot of things, right?
hmm
But I think I balance pretty well because you know me, I'm just a nonchalant, most time things don't decide don't bother me if we go left, right, up, down.
yeah,
All right, let's do it.
right, right, right.
So I think that's that's the other part. I think yours is like you said that she just wanted to be she was a little bit afraid of some of the things.
Yeah, yeah, just those natural fears of raising children. But we came to a compromise. We was like, yo, two and done. And she was like, she always said this joke was just like, if we hopefully we have twins and then we'll just be done on one. Two kids, one pregnancy. But it didn't happen. We had two kids, two separate pregnancies.
Let me
But
tell you, two kids at once is not fun. That's a
I
great.
know.
I love it.
I know, right? I know. I see it with you every day, bro. Like I know that could be a challenge,
Yeah.
um, but even with that, we had to come to a compromise because I think early on I was like, I would love to have three. And three just was just a number that kind of just stood out, just like I just like that number, and we came to the compromise. She at first she was like one, and I was like, that's a long way from none, what I'm saying? And then we met in the middle, and it was just like, all right, cool, we'll do that, and here we are now with our two children trying to figure out what school looks like, and
That part.
bruh, I don't understand. It's stuff like this that make me want to move to like another country. I ain't gonna lie to you.
I'm telling you. I'm
So
telling you.
schooling is something serious, brother, man.
Yeah, man. But hey, we have to go through it, man.
We got to go through it.
That's
Definitely got to
part
go through it.
it's a part of the job description they ain't tell us about.
I know they ain't tell us about that. Like, and then, all right, this is a brief vent. And then we got to close out the episode. We're going longer than we normally go. But the thing about schooling is, what they don't tell you is that if you want your kids to go to the best schools, then you have to move to neighborhoods that you necessarily don't want to be in, right? Those neighborhoods are far out of everywhere that you want to be.
And you can't afford it, probably.
And they like way too expensive because the schools are like super great. So it's like, do I go over here and buy a home to send my kid to a great school, or do I just stay in this area and buy like 4 homes? You know what I mean? It's like, look, think about this, right? I can go here and buy 1 house. They can go to have the best education possible, or I can stay in this neighborhood, buy 3 homes, and I can live in one. So I'm making money off of the other 3 homes that I'm doing. Like, I'm thinking like this is rental property. Then I'm like, I went to public school and I turned out okay. You know what I mean? So it's like, but those are the, that's the tough thing, man. And just
I think about that all the time as well, because some of the conversations we have is about whether we want to do private school, and I'm like, no, we're not going to be doing private school. We're going to put $20,000 to $40,000 a year per kid. We might as well buy the house that we want up there and send them to school for free. At least I get a return on my investment that way.
Right.
But I think the other part too is when I take a step back now and look at education and the opportunities that it provides for you, it kind of I'm like, okay, yes, let's move up there. Let's pay this ridiculous amount of money. Let's live where we don't want to live, because it does pay off. Because all public schools are not equal, even though we turned out right. Okay.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, let's just say this, bro. Like, we live in Atlanta, and unless you go into North Atlanta High School, or you go in the city of Decatur,
correct.
That's about all you got, bro. Like, in the city, maybe Grady if you're in Midtown and going to Grady High School. But as far as the city, like APS, it's just, unfortunately, those schools are just not the best. And those are high schools we talk about. If we get into the elementary schools, you're like, no, I can't even send my kid there. That school is a 1, this school is a 2, school is a 3. And it's like, it's just a lot to think about. Because we're at that point of like, fam, I don't want to move to Gwinnett, bro. Like, and I don't want to move, maybe.
But then also, when we think about APS, if you're looking at the areas where they probably
gentrification is, go ahead and say it.
Yes. But then also the areas that have the great schools, like your Buckheads. Who can afford to live in Buckhead?
I mean, you can afford it. You can afford it
if you're staying in a townhouse that you rent.
No. So look, here's the thing, right? Let's not get it twisted. It's not about if you can afford it or not. It's about, do you want to bend over backwards to get it done, right? Yeah. Like, you can go and buy a $1.5 million house in Buckhead. You can do that on your, your $70,000 to $140,000 salary. Yes, you can do that, but here's the thing: you're gonna have some challenges.
Yes, you're gonna have a lot of challenges. 90% of your money going to the mortgage.
You're gonna have some challenges, bro. Because I'm just saying. I'm speaking for the middle class here, and maybe some upper middle class too. I'm just speaking for where we're at right now, right?
Right.
Do I aspire to get there? Yes, I absolutely aspire to get there. But bro, I just want to say this just for the regular people. Man, I don't think you're ready to see a $5,000 and $6,000 mortgage. I just don't think you're ready to see. I don't think people realize what that looked like to.
That's a lot.
To get a bill every month that says $5,000 to $6,000, and that's what that mortgage is going to be for those, those properties. So,
And that's the low end.
oh no, that is 100% low end. You know somebody. You got a guy. So, I mean, with all that being said, we're going to have another conversation about the challenges of getting your kids in schools and gentrification and
Yeah. That's
all
a
of that.
good conversation to have.
That'll be a good conversation.
Maybe on that one, we should bring in some of our education friends that can kind of help walk through that conversation as well. I think that'd be a good one. That'll
actually be really good. That'll be really good. So, hey, that's it. We thank y'all for rocking with us. This was a great conversation here, and thanks to Keith for inspiring the conversation. Thank you for being an avid listener. We do appreciate you. Continue to comment, rate, review, send us questions. We're here for that, right? This platform is built for you, right? And we're just trying to have these conversations that we can continue to inspire the minds of other Black men and women, knowing what we're going through here as Black men, and know that we are out here thinking, really. So we'll see y'all next week. Thank y'all for listening once again.
Thank you, guys. We love you guys.
The Black Men Think Podcast.